I think COVID has opened up a gateway for people to start exploring alternative therapies to not just heal themselves or to get better from a cold or maybe a headache, but just to change the way that they see the world. On today's show, we're going to be going down the rabbit hole and exploring something that I don't know anything about, and that is herbal botanicals. Hi, this is Joey Buzzertil, and welcome to the Secret Men's Business Podcast. On today's show, we're going to be speaking to Scott OHLGREN from the USA, and he's going to lead us down a discussion and maybe teach us a few things around herbal botanicals and what the benefits are. Scott, how are you?
Good. Thanks so much for having me on. I think what you guys are doing is great.
Thank you. I mean, I feel like this is the first time I was actually doing an intro and going, I don't really know nothing about this topic. So I'm going to be ears open listening to everything that you are going to tell us. So just before we start, though, can you just maybe talk a little bit about you and just give us a bit of a quick update about your background?
Yeah. I'm 66 years old this week, actually.
Yeah, happy birthday.
Thank you. I was born in a pretty small town in America, in what they call the Midwest. For those of you who don't know, there was no exposure to anything that we're going to talk about tonight. There was no traveling, no exposure to alternative thinking, nothing. But I didn't really have a good time there. So, it was just, I met one person early on and I thought, good, you can escape. Because at the time, you either go to college or you work for the factory. Yeah. So I as we were talking earlier before we got on, I traveled a lot in my 20s, like went out for 3 years and didn't come back, and spent actually 6 months in Australia. I spent 3.5 months on the Indian Ocean on a 41-foot sloop. I was in Africa for a year. I traveled through Europe. So, I kind of did all that kind of stuff. And then it was really there that I got completely exposed to the whole diet disease, diet health connection. And I became completely enamored by that, and completely baffled too. Like, why doesn't more people know it? And I don't know, what it was like in the 60s and 70s in terms of the dietary choices you guys had, but
I think the whole world was the same, because we are pretty much we in a way we just maybe a bit behind you, but we are America now. You know what I mean? So the dietary thing, I think, changed for everyone when what would you call that, mass production of food and
it's horrible. Yeah. Just horrible junk. My mom bought more. Do you know what Tang is?
Yeah.
Tang?
Hello. We had Tang. I had Tang when I was little. I actually crave it every now and then now. Like I don't think it's available now here. But it's interesting that from your travels, did you see the difference between European, because I'm Maltese and we have the European diet, and then we've got Australia and we've got the sort of semi-American diet. Can you see the difference? Like, did you explore when you were traveling? Do you see how different countries have different, pulls towards eating healthy?
Good question. I think in every country you've got traditional foods, and then even Australians. Back in the the early 1930s and 40s, everyone grew their own vegetables and did what they can.
Well, I still do that now.
Do you?
Yeah.
Right on.
I was going to say, so you understand Vegemite then?
Vegemite, of course, man. Come on.
Yeah. So with the while you were talking, I found it interesting. Before pharmaceuticals came around, was the herbal botanical stuff in a way starting to build up, and then they sort of got squashed through pharmaceutical stuff? Because I was, if you think back to like Louis Pasteur and all that, that was all herbal experimentation, wasn't it? And then is that what actually happened? Was there a place for it once upon a time, and then it sort of got squashed? Or am I?
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. I mean, all medicine used to be natural medicine, and all dietary suggestions were natural food suggestions, because there just wasn't very many pharmaceuticals. So, it all had the basis of it. And I'm not anti-science at all. I follow both sides to it. I just, from my perspective, I see a lot of people with illnesses that I can immediately point to. If they changed their nutritional intake, those symptoms would reverse themselves and their body would heal.
Yeah.
Most aches and pains, most skin conditions, many organ issues that people have, brain fog, and even in quite a few cases, and this is what attracted to come onto your show, was to talk about mental health. Mental health, good God.
Everything sort of is connected, isn't it? Everything is like, if you don't have a clear sort of system, it impacts everything. But I want to just ask, did you have something happen to you? Or was just, okay, so, because I also had something that happened to me, and I went down the medical path and nothing happened. And then once I discovered the holistic path, which I was fighting the hospitals with, and then I got better, and they just go, oh, it's a coincidence. It's like, no. But a lot of people like myself don't know the full definition. So what is herbal botanicals? What does it represent?
Well, it kind of represents a couple of things. One, it can go into just basic nutrition and meals. How do you prepare food? What do you eat? Where do you get your proteins and your vegetables? And how are you preparing your food?
Okay.
Versus really, really processed foods or quick foods or McDonald's or fries and so forth. So there's all that. That's the big piece.
Yeah. I mean, just with that, before you go on, it is, I sort of feel like we've been brainwashed, and also it's and I'm sure we'll talk about this, but it sort of like seems to be the price factor. It's like, sometimes to eat healthy, I don't know about where you are, but here, it could be expensive versus a really quick meal. And I think when people are busy and they've got a family, I know they don't mean to, but they sort of try and go for the quick, alternative. I guess we could talk about that later. I just wanted to know, how do people get out of that mindset? How do they stop the brainwashing? How do they be brave to do this thing that you're talking about?
Well, I think the first step is how people get involved deeply into natural wellness is because they've got something that they can't get rid of. So I would use that as the avenue. So let's say they have brain fog, or let's say they've got a skin condition they can't. Now you can go on the internet and find the dietary choices, and we're going to talk about the botanical choices that can help you get rid of that problem.
Yeah.
So
that's interesting then, isn't it? That you have to find a problem to find it. So I wonder if there's a possibility that we can try and educate young kids to just be in it straight away. I'm sure it's going to be hard, but imagine what it would be like, right? If you just went straight into a healthy eating, life. Imagine what that would feel like versus how we were as kids. Like, you and I are a similar age. How we got, we got corrupted by eating all these meals, and we didn't even know that we were eating them, So what is the botanical part? Is it plants? Is that what that means?
Yeah. Botanicals are just any kind of plant medicine. And actually, when I got back from that big long trip back in my late 20s, I knew I wanted to study nutrition, and I wanted to eventually have my own company. And it took quite a while, to figure out what my niche would be. But where I really got interested was I started writing books. I was an author, and I've done 2 or 3 books that you can still get on Amazon and all around.
Yeah,
and
I'll make sure that everything's linked below so people can find those books.
Yeah. It's basically on how to do a cleansing diet, because a cleansing diet is the fastest way to have a physical experience of cellular regeneration that happens in your body. Because what you were talking about is a lot of people come in doubting that it really is going to do anything. They look at all of this natural wellness as twigs and leaves and teas and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, I think what happens as well is that, unfortunately, like everything, Scott, it becomes commercial, right? So once upon a time, you'd go to a Chinese medicine place, or you'd go to a nice place and get stuff. But now, they've figured it out because it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and they've packaged it, and it's the same thing again, preservatives. And that's what frustrates me, is that they just have to put the word herbal, or they have to put the word natural on a packet, and it gets approved, and then people think and that's why I think the doubt happens, because people don't realize that it's just been mimicked to make money. That happens over there as well, right? Like there's the proper stuff, and then there's the stuff that's just been ripped off.
Oh, very much. And in fact, every couple of years, the FDA will go in and bust companies that are selling some types of either supplements or either vitamins or botanicals, and because the amount of those things that aren't there.
Yeah.
And so but it's interesting. It's like you'll find the companies that are really good.
Well, in Australia, we had a major crackdown, and literally nearly, I'd say 90% of vitamin companies were closed down, because what you were just saying, like, they say, I take a pill a day, but that pill won't even do anything. So it was all about false promises, and not, just not being transparent. And, vitamins are expensive. So, similar thing as what you guys did, we just had, you had to be honest. And so that changed the landscape, at least with vitamins, which is good. And I guess when it comes to the proper botanicals, the only problem is that people aren't registered, so anyone could be one here. You know what I mean? I could just become one tomorrow. That's the thing that sometimes is also concerning, to make sure that people have studied and they know what they're talking about, versus someone just going on the internet and then trying to pretend to be someone that knows what they're talking about.
Yeah, well, the good thing is that most people don't need coaches anymore to learn how to eat right and to know what supplements and what botanicals are good for them, because you've got the internet and you can make your own decisions. It's become much more easy to get your own information.
Okay. So you don't think it's dangerous? So I had a neurology problem, and I couldn't walk for a while, and then I got better, but I was really surprised when I did research how there was so much food. I didn't realize there was so much food that I was eating that caused inflammation, right? And
Right.
It's just not something that you're taught. And so unless I went and looked and I got that information, I would have continued, because one of my favorite foods is tomatoes. And tomatoes are a no-no. So every time I ate a tomato, I didn't understand why my leg would hurt, because I was inflaming my nervous system by eating, like, I'd eat 5 in a day, right? And so that was really hard to give tomatoes up. Can you just tell us, what would you consider to be the top 3 things that are probably something that everyone should be eating, or like, that it is powerful? Because the word power, superfood is such a buzzword, and I don't think people don't know what to believe. So what do you believe is something that should be a staple?
Well, I always tell people, well, before you add something more in, find out what's already going in, because that's often the cause. As you said with your tomatoes, there would have been nothing I could have probably told you that would have helped with the problem you were having with solanine, or whatever it was that you were interacting with that's inside of the tomato that's part of the nightshade family. Probably the solanines is generally what that is. But and I wouldn't have said, take this. I would have said, what are you eating?
Yes.
What are your habits? What do you love to eat a lot? And then you start stripping down from those. And by the way, I've been doing this for 40 years. My wife and I just had this conversation last night. She actually, I had to drive her to the airport this morning, but we were talking about how you really, even 40 years into it, we're all walking Petri dishes. We're all a constant experiment on ourselves. And what you could handle 20 years ago, Joe, you may not be able to handle now. I can't eat a lot of the foods that were natural and healthy for me. I can't eat those now because I've changed for whatever reason, either because I'm just getting older or
Well, I was also going to compliment you and say that if you've been doing it that long, that would be why you look so young. I really do believe that eating healthy and just not putting preservatives in your body you know, testament to you look 20 years younger than you said your birthday was. So, you
Mm.
know, so during lockdown, right, the funny thing was that I never was a sweet person. I'm a savory person. And then lockdown happens, and what do I discover for the first time? Chocolate, right? And I was eating chocolate as if I've been, you know, kept away from it forever. And it was in a very short period of time, my whole digestive system changed. This totally changed. And so luckily I was aware enough to go, oh my God, it's the chocolate.
Yeah.
And so it's good to have that experience, because I think sometimes people don't realize the cause and the cause of eating like sugar.
Cause and effect. Cause and effect. Oh,
and also the add-ons. That thing that you said I think is also important. Like with my tomatoes, for example, I love putting salt on them. Right? And so that would also contribute to my inflammation. So do you think that this topic is hard, or do you think people are lazy? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what do you feel like is the main reason why we don't follow it more vigorously?
Yeah, it's because just what you said. It's not that it's hard or that it's easy. It's that they don't get the connection.
Yes.
Between what they're putting into their body and how their body is ending up. They don't get the connection. They don't believe the connection. Even when you show them, they won't believe it, because why wouldn't their hospital have told them, their doctors told them, their books told them? Why wouldn't they? I mean, is it a conspiracy? What? Why?
Well, I think that it is, because, you know, in Australia we had this thing where they were talking about a particular way of eating which was healthy, and it was quite surprising how quickly they made. I'm going to say they were made up, right? How quickly the people talking about it were, you know, they were made to feel like they were dumb. So the narrative by the media and by certain, you know, hospital heads or pharmaceutical companies, and so people believe that, and that's where I think it takes courage. I'm really, really lucky, I think, that I had my little injury, my little accident, and because I wouldn't have known, and now that changed everything for me as well, similar to you, right? But the thing is, not everyone can have that, can they? Not a lot of people have that turning point. So unfortunately, some people might have it when they're too old.
I guess, but all I would do is encourage people, because here's the cool thing, and that's what actually my books are about. And by the way, I'm not on here to sell my books.
But we will talk about them.
They're all sold, and, you know, they're only in the used market. There's 80,000 books out there that I've written, but I don't print them up anymore. But the main thing of the book was to say to all of those who don't believe that whatever symptoms going on is somehow connected to your diet, the cool thing is you'll know it in 10 to 14 days. It's not like, well, I have to eat this way for 2 years and it may or may not change.
Yeah.
Your body regenerates new cells, and your body eliminates the metabolic waste of whatever it is that you used to be eating, and now you've stopped eating that, and now you're putting in foods that are very, very easy to digest. Is basically what cleansing foods are. And by cleansing foods, I mean, you know, nuts, seeds, grains, clean proteins, meat, beans, whatever, vegetables, lots of vegetables, water. You measure out the water, right on. You measure that out. And there are a couple of supplements that you generally want to do that speed up the removal of the excess metabolic waste that happens when you stop eating all those things that were harming you.
Yeah. Okay.
You want to speed those up. And that's where, when you go back to what would you suggest people to take, I would not have people take anything until they look at their diet and realize, what are the things that might be clogging me up, that might be harming in some way. And and sometimes they're a little bit esoteric, like tomatoes. Not everyone has a
and that's specific. But, you know, really, what I'm hearing is that you're saying that everything is about gut health. Is it gut health? Like, does the gut health, what you put into your body goes into your gut, and then from there everything comes, right? So if someone is eating, like, for example, if someone's eating junk food every day, like for one of my clients, then they experience mental health problems. And you're right. Like it's as if they don't understand the correlation between, oh, I had burgers every night of the week, and why do I feel so sluggish and I've got no motivation, and why am I depressed? It's like they don't understand that connection because I'm guessing because there is a lack of dialogue, because I guess these big companies that sell the food don't want that to go out.
Well, also it's, and I bet you've talked about this on your podcast in some way. Modeling.
Like modeling each other.
Modeling each other. Yeah. If someone that really thought this is a bunch of BS, Joe, I don't believe it. I don't hang out on it's not. All my symptoms have nothing to do with the food that I eat. If he started hanging out with friends who ate the way I ate, they would never have to say a thing, but he would start to see the human behavior and just slowly start to change. And all of a sudden, a week later, 2 weeks later, oh my God, my knuckles work again. I'm losing the arthritis in my hands. I thought my wrist, problem that I'd had since my 20s was something that, because I fell off the bike, and now I don't have pain in my wrist. Yeah. So a lot of it is modeling.
Yes. And is there a shame or not a shame, that's the wrong word, but, I think America, Australia, I'm going to say most of the world now is experiencing obesity, right? So there is obviously a pumping of the wrong foods. Do you think there's a connection between emotional eating and because emotional eating is a big thing. Come on, like whenever I'm feeling down, Scott, I just want to go to Kentucky Fried Chicken. Like I don't, but I just have this picture in my head that'll make me feel better when I know it won't. So do you think that's a really big thing when it comes to obesity? Is it emotional eating?
Oh, is there? I didn't know there was another factor in it. I mean, what else could there be? I mean, other than
the price. The price is a big one, I think.
The love of food. Wait a minute. I eat cheaper than anybody here.
I know, but the mentality, like you were saying before, like a lot of parents might be rushing, and so rather than going home and preparing a meal, they'll go through a drive-through on the way home and get burgers, and so that.
Okay, but that's not price. That's not price.
Right? Yeah, you're right. You're right.
That's time management.
Yes. Yeah.
And right. that's a big issue. But at the same time, you have to learn how to cook. You have to learn how to cook in bulk. When I make a soup, when I make a meal, do you think I make one serving for me and one serving for my wife?
No.
Everything, because I'm busy.
So what about you? What's your naughty food? Do you have naughty food, or do you think that you're so into this, not trying to get into the secret, but like, I'm sure, do you feel that you don't have any temptations? Because for me personally, except for the chocolate, when I got ill and I discovered stuff, I let go of so many things, and I don't have those cravings. Like, for example, I don't drink alcohol anymore. I don't eat meat anymore, and I don't crave those things now at all. And I know now that if I was to have them, I probably would say no. So,
Oh yeah, no, and I encourage him. The cool thing is when everything is working, guess what?
Yeah,
you can go out and have Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Yeah. Well, what I've found
is your body can handle it. It's it's like a cup filled with dirty water.
My body can't handle it. I get gas.
Oh well, there's that.
But the thing is that I was going to say, what I've discovered actually, when you open your eyes and you actually walk into a health food shop, you realize that there's all this other stuff. You know what I mean? Like, so I think you have to realize that not everything that you eat has to come from a supermarket. Like a lot of people think. They think that everything that they need to eat needs to come in a box, or it needs to come with colours on the packaging. When I started going into these other shops, organic and all that, you see a whole plethora of different foods, right? And having a garden here, like my tomatoes, I don't eat them, but my family does. They're not red like they are in the supermarket. They're a crimson colour. So it really does get you to see the difference of natural versus, preservatives.
Yeah.
So I think people need to explore that, because when they see it themselves and you touch it and you smell it, especially like with vegetables that you could make yourself, like, the supermarket vegetables last a long time. My vegetables only last a few days.
Interesting. Yeah.
You know, does that happen there as well?
I guess so. I guess so. You know, we don't have a garden, so we don't. We're not picking our own vegetables. Our neighbor gives us some stuff periodically. I don't see that so much. Uh, I I think that I mean we eat as fresh as possible. You know, we have a pantry. One of the keys to good eating is you have to have a pantry.
Mm.
To have a room where you walk into and you have what we call stores. You know, you've got cans, you've got grains, you've got beans, and I'm a big fan. When it comes to beans, I used to cook my own beans. Right? No, no, screw that. I
Yeah.
get canned beans. You know, I think they're just as good. And then what I replenish every day is my proteins. Not every day, but once a week, twice a week, I get fresh vegetables, fresh fruit, and then my
Yeah.
whatever protein. So that's what I keep moving.
Yeah, you said earlier that you don't spend a lot of money, so I'm guessing that you've got a system. You know where to go to buy stuff that's because I'm sure that because it's a small country, Australia, organic is really expensive here.
Then don't go organic. You can live to 100 and eat really healthy and look young and get rid of all your symptoms without going organic.
Yeah.
So don't go organic.
Well, I was also going to encourage people. Like, I think a lot of people don't realize that you can easily grow a few things in pots and not have to have a big garden.
You're in Australia, mate. My God, everything grows there.
I know. No, but what I'm saying is people don't have the backyard, or they don't want to. They want it to be pretty, right? Because having a garden in the backyard, it doesn't match aesthetics for a lot of I look at our garden and go, oh my God, that's so rural in the city.
Yeah.
But our garden is pretty big. We literally grow everything. Like corn, spinach, all that sort of stuff. But you can still do the same thing in pots if you live in an apartment, and that's the thing. It's like I think people have to be. That's why I'm excited about talking to you. Is to excite people listening.
Yeah. Listen, I don't know how much time we've got, but I want to go.
Keep going. You keep going.
Okay.
You
I want to talk about mental health.
Okay. Go.
Okay. Good. One of the things you touched on it. One of the things that people oftentimes will see an association with is when they're eating bad, they will experience more depression and more anxiety. There is a direct correlation, and it does have to do with gut health. So you've got to learn to reverse that. One of the product that I created during the Black Plague, the pandemic, was a brain tonic that works very, very well for an uplift in mood, lessening of depression, a lessening of anxiety. And it is because of the Ayurvedic, the Eastern Indian herbs that we've got in it. It was actually formulated by a very good friend of mine who's an East Indian doctor, and he actually works for the pharmaceutical companies because he's so brilliant with botanicals. So I would encourage people.
So it's like a drink?
It's actually a, my God, normally I'm more prepared than this. I usually have a bottle here. Hang on, I want to show you a bottle.
Yeah,
it's cool.
So just I can edit, so that's cool.
It's actually the reason it's so potent is because we kept it in a liquid form. It's kind of very thick. It's actually got an oil base to it.
And how much do you take a day?
Very small amounts. It's 2 or 3, 4 or 5 pumps, and each pump is quite small. It's like about a half a milliliter per pump, so you can get an idea.
And what I know that you probably don't want to tell us the full ingredients, but what is one of the main ingredients? Like what would go into something like that?
Well, first of all, by law, you have to tell all the ingredients.
Right.
Oh yeah, in Australia as well. You guys have this.
I just thought maybe it's a secret. It's a secret tonic. You know what I mean?
No. I wouldn't put anything into my body if someone just said, "I'm not going to tell you what to put."
Yeah.
The only reason I would say we probably won't go through all the ingredients is because they're all Latin names. So I will just tell you a couple of them.
Okay.
So that people might be familiar with them. One is called Bacopa. Bacopa moniaria is been for hundreds of years considered a brain tonic. Celestius paniculatus. I know.
That's
Osum, Osimum sanctum, which is holy basil.
you need a wand because it sounds like Harry Potter spells.
Yeah, it does. Okay, here's one actually I would like people, especially those dealing with periodic mental fatigue or mental health issues. I want them to go look up something called Graphonia simplicifolia. Graphonia simplicifolia.
Okay. Yeah, and what is that?
It is the one that has 5-HTP in it. 5-HTP is an extraordinary compound. 5-HTP is the precursor to serotonin. Serotonin is your body's natural sense of well-being hormone. And even more important is 5-HTP, serotonin, when the night, and by the way, it's starting to be night here, and I can already feel, I had a long day, I had to get up at 3 o'clock to take my wife to the airport. I can feel the serotonin metabolizing into melatonin.
Right.
So they're connected, feeling good with the serotonin and the ability to sleep at night, the melatonin is connected. Well, this Graphonia simplicifolia, it's actually a seed that, it's a bean that grows in Africa, and now it's starting to grow in Asia and other places because it's becoming so popular. It has some of the highest amount of the precursors to 5-HTP. So that we have a good amount in every dose.
And is there many of the? I know that's your tonic, but like, do you feel that that's something that's available around the world from
yes.
Are people sort of in your work? Are they doing similar things?
Yeah, you can find all of these herbs
from a health food shop, probably
hundreds of years.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I find fascinating, right? Like the Chinese medicine has been around for more thousands of years, and yet it's still, it's still not recognized. Like, do you think, because of your experience, that the pharmaceutical companies are starting to, will they ever wake up and find a marriage or a sync between those two modalities?
Oh yeah. The thing with pharmaceutical companies, though, is that even when they find, and by the way, oftentimes when they're looking for a solution to a problem that exists, they are going into the natural world in plants. I know people who formulate for pharmaceutical companies, and that's what they're doing. They're looking at the research. I just had this conversation with a pharmaceutical, not rep, but he is a chemist. He was telling me about a plant that grows mainly in Madagascar, and its effect on body chemistry and longevity is phenomenal. I never heard it, and it's like, as soon as he told me, I was like, I got to go look it up. So they are doing that. Here's where it gets weird, though, with pharmaceutical companies, is that 5-HTP can be purchased in grocery stores, online, Amazon now. So pharmaceutical companies go, well, there's no money in that because we can't patent it. Right. So what they do is they will alter it enough, do some kind of change to it, whether it's an improvement or not, doesn't matter. But then they can sell it for a lot of money and it's theirs. So, as long as there's that unholy marriage between the medical system and the pharmaceutical company, it's always going to be tough to find educated medical people interested in human health on a very, like, the wide macro level, like,
the holistic level,
and everything. You're going to have, you only can find them that are not tied to their pharmaceutical reps. So that's why, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. So,
and I can tell you're passionate, and I think, because I know that when I got unwell, like, I was on really strong medication and it was a tough time, and then it was so easy once I was sort of stronger in my own head to say, I'm going to go down this path, and how everything changed. Sometimes those side effects, and again, people don't realize the impact. I know that there's side effects with herbal botanicals as well, because I know that there's some dangerous things that you can't mix and all that. But with the serotonin that you were talking about and the melatonin, you know how people are talking about sugar being the most dangerous food at the moment? Is that the thing that's depleting a lot of these natural parts of us?
It does. It's not so much that the sugar takes those things out. It's the overall damage it does to the body. It makes it too acidic. Uh, it exhausts your adrenals. But the other thing too is it doesn't have the nutrients in it.
It's got nothing, isn't it?
And yet you're getting a lot of energy from that sugar. So who needs real food?
Yeah, it's surprising. Like, I didn't know that sugar was in everything. I like when I found out that sugar was in everything, like it's an ingredient in most preserved, like, processed foods. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're thinking you're getting, say, a barbecue sauce, and I didn't think that there was sugar in that, but there's sugar in everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I mean, America is really got those lobbyists and all that. So it is hard there, isn't it?
Yay! Sorry about that.
So it's because there's so much money involved. It's hard, yeah. So before we finish, because there's so many things I want to ask you, and I think I need more time with you. What would be your final thing to say? How could you? I guess I want a marriage between what you know and I guess what people are doing, especially men, that you can maybe advise so they can start shifting. Like, for example, I do have a belief that men are probably a bit worse with food than women, and that could be wrong, maybe.
Okay.
But what do you think?
Okay. Well, one of the driving passions came for this new direction and why I'm going on to all talk shows and everything else. It's not necessarily to sell my own product. It's to point out to people we are more black. We have more black and white thinking people than ever before. We've got overreactive minds. We've got gross levels of generalization, a loss of language accuracy, divisive thinking, irritability, over-aggression, cult-like thinking. I mean, look at my poor country. How did Trump happen? And I know,
but we're not far behind. We're not far behind you. Trust me.
I hear it, and I have many friends from my travels in Australia, and they're saying the same thing. It's scary there, and it's scary. Here's what I think: the common denominator is that a lot of these people are creating a mind that thinks like that from their nutritional choices. And so I'm out there to say, folks, if you want to affect the world, you have to learn how to feed your brain so that it creates extraordinarily clear thinking individuals in your own self, parents, and your children. You have to learn this now. And again, it's not complex. In 10 days, 15 days, you will wake up one morning and go, I can't believe how good I feel.
Yes. I mean, I've experienced it. I know other people have experienced it. But can I just add a bit of a spanner to the works, right? Because of what you said, I totally agree with the premise. But because of social media, you've got to admit, there's a lot of confusing and conflicting information.
Horrible. We're living in a time of total.
Everyone's an expert, right? Everyone, I saw a lady that was promoting living off lemon water for a whole month, and I'm going, oh my god! Like, she's telling people and she's saying, oh, this is good, da da da. So how do you weed out those people?
Yeah. Well, first of all, none of us have ever been here before, where we're living in a world of. Sometimes it's not nefarious. It's just everyone has an opinion, and now they can create an audience of 100,000 people, and that's my opinion. And therefore, if they got 100,000 people, it must be true.
Yeah.
And I don't have any easy answers. Look,
will the qualification help? Like, you sound like you know what you're talking about. These words, these Latin words just come out of your mouth as if they're just normal, right?
Oh, I think you can get fooled by that too. I mean, I've got these degrees, and now, so we've lost all the markers that tell us what is kind of true and what's not. And we all, I mean, look, ever since in my country, ever since Watergate, I was just graduating high school when Watergate hit. Let me tell you what that did to and and the Vietnam War, what it did to our psyches, it completely screwed us up, because all of a sudden we realized, oh, they can lie to us.
Right. So before then, you didn't think it was possible?
No.
Yeah. I mean,
Maybe.
like, I feel like I think everyone lies, but what I feel happens is people have got good marketing or good techniques to get you to see it in a different way. And that's, you know, because we live in a distracted world and people want things fast, it's a lot easier. You're right. Like, you know, think about when we didn't have social media and then go back to before mobiles, right? The thing is that things were more, you're right, people were specialists and we would listen to the specialist. Now, as soon as a specialist talks, there's a line of people that are going to say no, right? And so that whole thing can be manufactured. I know some of it is by lobbyists, but then also it's just all this information. So people then say, okay, I'm going to research, or they say it's too hard.
Boy, Joe, I don't have any easy answer. I mean, I guess the guiding principles that I go on is that I refuse to be an asshole. I refuse to be an overreactive mind. I refuse to see black and white. I refuse to use the language of entrapment. You will never hear the words out of my mouth, Republican and Democrat. It's like, go fuck yourself. Whoever created those kind of distinctions, and you think they're accurate, that they represent some
people, but they don't.
People, they don't. And so now they're all just trigger words.
I think the answer to the question was what you said at the beginning, right? And that was, I believe that you have to look at yourself and you have to say, am I healthy or not? And then there should be an opening to be inquisitive and go and find the answer, right? Rather than just going to the supermarket, picking up the brightest and cheapest product. Because you and I guess, have experienced what that means. And it's hard to explain to people if they don't have something wrong. You know what I mean? It is hard. Like, once I started to experience problems, you can't ignore it. I mean, you could, but I didn't want pain. And so it was easy to, you know, it's unfortunate that that's the way it has to be for some things. Like, even with mental health, you know, I try to encourage people to meditate so they can have a better life, but people won't do it until they have a problem. See, so I'm trying to encourage people not to suffer, and you're trying to encourage people to be healthy. And I guess only a small amount of the population get that message. Are you aware that like only 20% of the population believe in therapy, for example? So that means 80% of people are in pain, right? So I'm sure it's the same with food.
Yeah, well, I can't help everyone. I would just encourage people to, before they take one more pharmaceutical drug that probably just covers up what's really going on, take a look and see, and look around and see if there's something you can change in your lifestyle that will stop that pain, stop that mental health problem, and so forth.
Yes. You know, thank you for coming on the show. You are just doing this alone is enough for people to start to have a dialogue. And even if just seeing you and realizing that how young you look, you know, especially for a man, I think that's inspiring, right? Like, you just have to do a few things. I don't think you are a slave to your health regime, and you feel healthy, you feel good, you're young, you're all that stuff. And, you know, my father's the same age as you, and he's really old. Like, you're really cool and active and all that. So thank you so much. And we'll put a link to all your stuff below. So if anyone wants to reach you or get anything that you've got, they can reach you. So thanks very much.
Yeah, Joe, thanks. Come over to America Sun if you're ever
here. I love, oh my God, I was just looking at photos when I was in Florida because I went on a cruise to the Caribbean just a few years ago. And I got to see those photos again. I'm going, wow, I looked really good there. Florida is beautiful. So thank you, and we will see you soon.
Okay, man.
All right, everybody, thanks for listening and watching the Secret Man's Business podcast. Now, as I said, all of Scott's information will be down below. I mean, that was really inspiring. I mean, he looks so good, and he just looks 20 years younger. So it's something that we should all think about. Let's talk about it as a group. Let's change the way that we look at our bodies and look at our health. Until next time, everyone, have a great week. Bye.